Welcome to Prime Time for Women, the show for and about women in their prime. Did you know that learning new skills, especially after 50, is good for the brain? According to a study in the journal Gerontology, learning multiple skills simultaneously increase the cognitive ability of older adults to levels similar to adults 30 years younger. So that's one reason to learn something new. More importantly, learning new information and developing new skills is exciting and challenging, and above all, tons of fun. Our guest today, Jolene Thomas, is the Director of Operations and Membership for Visit Hagerstown and the Washington County Convention and Visitors Bureau. 2 years ago, a new chapter of Jolene's life began to evolve. After watching an episode of the Christmas Cookie Exchange on the Food Network, she began experimenting with royal icing on sugar cookies and watching cookie decorating tutorials. With encouragement from friends and family to share her new self-taught talent, she sold her first batch of cookies and has not slowed down since. I'm so happy to welcome you to our show, Jolene.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, it's terrific. So in 2018, when you were learning, were you looking to learn something new when you were watching the Cookie Challenge, or did it just tickle a fancy?
Actually, a little bit of both. I've never really had a hobby or a special talent like a lot of people do. Mm-hmm. I've been a mom for 28 years, and that's kind of been my hobby and my joy, and still is.
Oh, that's nice.
I know. But you know, the empty nest thing happens, and you start to reflect on your life. You know, what are you doing? And I just realized my routine was eat, sleep, work, repeat.
Right.
And I just felt like I needed to do something, and I actually prayed about it and kind of hoping to find something fun and maybe even be able to give back in return. And then, yeah, when I saw the Cookie Challenge, the artistry just kind of pulled me in.
So were you, did you do any drawing or painting or anything at all? Were you creative before that?
You know, when I was young, and I could probably find it somewhere, I know I have a drawing book, and I loved to draw. My grandmother was an artist, and so I kind of enjoyed that. Before
you started doing the serious cookie decorating, did you bake with your family or for your family and with your son?
I did. I was in the kitchen a lot. I remember baking cakes, cinnamon rolls, biscuits, muffins, and all from scratch. Mm-hmm. I really enjoyed that. And with my son, Brad, I remember having him in the kitchen because I wanted him to learn and see how the whole process is done. I even I remember buying him a little kid's knife, and that was kind of frustrating to him because it could barely cut through a chocolate bunny. I think it was only good for cutting through bananas. But now that he's older, he comes over once in a while and likes to meal prep. So it's fun having him there.
That's fun. When you were starting this, did you have a mentor or somebody that helped you with this endeavor?
No, I didn't. I kind of went to YouTube University, to figure it all out. And as far as mentors, though, I didn't realize how big this cookie community was and how friendly it is. But I actually attended a World Cookie Conference from the safety and comfort of my own home, and there were people from all around the world at different hours of the night.
So how many people were on this in this conference?
Oh, that's a really good
question.
Thousands or? Yeah, definitely hundreds.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And so you could ask questions even though it was virtual, and there's even a gentleman who gets on live every day on Instagram and really helps these full-time bakers market themselves.
That's neat.
Yeah.
That's so neat. So there's support out there, right?
There is support out there.
Well, in the beginning, when you were learning the skill, like any skill, it can be frustrating. It seems to me that learning the skills can be frustrating, but it also can feel like an accomplishment and maybe proud and creative all at the same time. Did you have those feelings, and did you ever have was it experience frustration for you? Did you ever have any mishaps?
Actually, it has been very exciting and very motivating to try and create your best, and definitely a healthy sense of pride.
Yeah,
and,
I bet.
Yeah, and there were times where the little insecurities come out, but you try to push those aside, and it's exciting on the other end as far as mishaps, I think we've all had those horror stories.
Can you tell us about one little mishap?
Sure. There's one about going from making single batches to double batching and not doubling your ingredients, but I did have like a cute little crab cookie cutter. We're in Maryland, you gotta have a crab, right? But every time I tried to take it off the cookie sheet or put icing on it, it was just too much for its little arms. But I almost threw it out. But then I thought if I just put his little claws up against his head and baked him that way, it kind of gave him more support and stuff. So you kind of learn as you go too.
That's great. And that's what I hope people watching this show will see, that you don't have to be perfect at first, but then you can develop those skills.
Yes.
Well, it's lucky for us, Jolene didn't give up baking after her little crab cookie mishap. She continues to bake and decorate and share her passion with others. We're going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, Jolene will tell us about her successes. Stay tuned, don't go away.
14 years ago, he diagnosed her with cystic fibrosis.
Our doctors read charts and test results.
Knowing my family history, she screened me early for colon cancer.
They read medical journals and digital images. But the most important thing they read...
He put down the laptop, he looked me in the eye, and listened.
...are their patients. Meritus Medical Group. Home to your extraordinary doctor.
We're back with Jolene Thomas, who is telling us about her recently found passion for decorating cookies and how this passion has become a small business. So Jolene, I imagine you made lots and lots of cookies before you were ready to sell them. Did you have somebody taste these cookies, or did you run your designs past different people?
Yes, I had my own little Keebler taste testers. And my friend Dawn has been good from the beginning, and my coworkers and friends, Betsy and Terry, have been wonderful. They've gotten a lot of my rejects. And then you have to have somebody.
But they don't mind, right?
They don't mind.
Yeah.
And then you have to have somebody that's brutally honest, and that's my son, Brad, so he's good, and his girlfriend, Sheridan. And as far as designs and colors, even though my sister Laura is like 3,000 miles away in Idaho, I can FaceTime with her if I'm like struggling on what colors I want to use or a pattern, and we can kind of talk it through. So
that's so great
helpful.
To have that support.
It is.
Yeah. So do you always use the same cookie recipe and the same icing recipe, or do you mix it up?
I knew in the beginning I needed to have a go-to recipe. And so I have one, I call it my Princess Vanilla. So if somebody can't decide, we go with that. But, you've got gingerbread and raspberry. And right now people are going nuts over the maple that I have right now. And as far as the icing, I kind of keep that the same, so the cookie is the surprise.
Right.
So,
and I also think as an artist, it's probably easier to have to know what you're working with, right? To have a consistency, a consistent consistency in your icing.
Exactly.
But
how, the lingo.
You like that? How about though mixing these the colors? Is that like mixing a palette, artist?
It is just like an artist, and I'm still learning. I'm glad I'm not bored yet, because there's so much more to learn. But yeah, you have to. If you can't get the color exactly how you want it in the bottle, you do have to mix other things to achieve that color.
That's neat.
So,
do you have a favorite cookie that you like to make, or?
I do. Every week there's always a new one that I'm like, oh, that's my favorite. But I remember one that really stuck out was last Christmas. It was my little snowman. I loved him. He was like so cute. And then I've done some llamas that were colorful. And sometimes the ones that become your favorite are the ones that have challenged you. Like I had one gal call, and she wanted me to make these LOL surprise dolls. Have you even heard of those? I had to look it up. And when I saw them and their big eyes, I was kind of like, no, I don't think so. And she's like, I know you can do it, and I don't care what they look like. Well, as soon as she said that, I was like, okay. So I actually brought them to show you.
Oh, I'd love to see them.
And so this is
Oh
That's
my
one
gosh.
of them. I know, they're crazy.
That's so cute.
And this one, I had to hand cut this one, but this one was kind of fun. It's my Mrs. Claus cutter, and I just took the chin off and added a piece to her hair.
And she does look just like.
I know, right? Now that you see it.
That's so cute.
And then I took an advanced cookie class online and wanted to learn 3D effects and shadowing. And so I made these, wow, from there. I call them my Picasso pieces because there's only one of each and I'm probably never making them again.
Oh, I know, but you learned something. Oh, look at that. It actually looks like that cookie is glowing.
I know, right?
That is beautiful. That is so special.
When I saw the artist do it, I was like, I just have to learn how to do that.
That is so great.
Yeah.
Where can our viewers see your cookies or maybe even purchase them? How does that happen?
Yeah, I take time to make videos and post pictures and would love people to follow me. I'm on Instagram as Jolene's Cookies. And just this week, I went ahead and started a Facebook page, Jolene's Cookies as well. And you can direct DM me on either site. So.
And people can contact you and buy some of these delicious cookies.
They can. Remember, I have a full-time job, so my calendar does fill up pretty quick. But.
Okay. So, Jolene, you not only sell these delicious cookies, you actually donate a portion of your proceeds to benefit numerous nonprofits. Could you talk about that?
Yes, thank you. In the beginning, when I mentioned that I was hoping to be able to give back, there's a program through It Is Written called Eyes for India. And there's more blind people in India than anywhere in the world, and they mostly just need simple cataract surgery. And then another one is Christmas Behind Bars, and they try to get Bibles into the prisons. And I love that because we could all use hope, love, and forgiveness, and that's one way I think they can get it through the scriptures. And Maranatha. They drill wells, build schools and churches all around the world, and organize mission trips so people can actually go help and accomplish those.
Well, that is so wonderful that you get to support all these different people with your passions.
Yes, it's exciting.
That is exciting. I understand that you brought something here today that you wanted to share.
I did. I was kind of rushed making these, but I did make you prime time.
Oh, prime time for women cookies. They are beautiful.
Yes, so those are for you.
Oh, I can't wait. That's lovely.
And then these are some of my maple cookies for you too as well.
They look beautiful. Oh, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I'm going to have you on every show.
Okay.
That's great. So Jolene, before we go, I was wondering if you could tell us what advice you have for women who are considering trying something new at this stage of life.
Yeah. I guess I would say, if you have a spark of interest in anything that comes along, don't ignore it. You don't want to have any regrets for not trying, and make sure you surround yourself with good family and good friends.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
I'd like to thank Jolene for being on today's show. Jolene not only mixes delicious dough and colorful icings to make amazing cookies, she also mixes her passion for baking with her compassion for others. I once heard someone say, as long as you know how to bake, life is sure to be sweet. I'm guessing Jolene's life will always be sweet, and I hope yours is too. Stay tuned, we'll be right back with our next guest.
14 years ago, he diagnosed her with cystic fibrosis.
Our doctors read charts and test results.
Knowing my family history, she screened me early for colon cancer.
They read medical journals and digital images. But the most important thing they read...
He put down the laptop, he looked me in the eye, and listened.
...are their patients. Meritus Medical Group. Home to your extraordinary doctor.
The DVR. It's changed the way we watch TV. And now, Antietam Broadband takes you to the next level with TiVo. Find your favorites on cable or streaming video faster with voice-activated integrated search. Record up to 6 channels at once and watch from any TV in your home. TiVo from Antietam Broadband. It will change your life. Call today or visit AntietamBroadband.com to learn more.
Prime doesn't refer to a certain age. It refers to a certain attitude about age. When women in their prime have unexpected health challenges, they face these concerns head on committed to researching best practices and finding solutions that enable them to live their lives to the fullest extent. Our guest today is one such woman. Mary Beth Ross is a wife, mother of 4, and a grandmother of 5. After a 37-year career as a pharmacist, Mary Beth pursued her passion for the natural world, earning a degree in biology and natural history from Frostburg State University. She's an avid hiker, a cycling enthusiast, a master naturalist, and an incredible cook, and an active volunteer at the Smithsonian Environmental Research Center. You get the idea. When she puts her mind to something, she gives it 100%. Mary Beth is also a good friend, and I can tell you, quite a raconteur. She could tell interesting stories and weave exciting tales about all of these topics. But today, she joins us to share, on a personal level, her struggle with hearing loss, its impact on her life, and her journey to rediscovering the joys of hearing, and often what hearing folks take for granted. Welcome, Mary Beth. Thanks for being here.
It's great to see you again, Bernadette.
I'm so glad you're here. So, Mary Beth, some hearing losses are noise-induced and related to aging, while others are disease-related. Can you tell us a little bit about your hearing loss and what your physical symptoms were?
Sure. Mine is actually disease-related. It's a disease called Meniere's, which is actually an imbalance. Oftentimes, people just get dizzy. It can be either all the time dizziness or occasional dizziness. Eventually, years down the road, you may become deaf.
Wow.
So, and that's what happened.
And how old were you when you first experienced
Right, I was going to say, unfortunately, I was 32 when the dizziness started. And then it became like periodic. By that I mean there was a period of time of 10 years when I had no symptoms. So now you're looking at the early 40s, and I started getting dizzy again. And that's when my ENT, my local ENT in Easton, sent me to a referral to University of Maryland, where I was diagnosed with the hearing loss.
I imagine it was probably a scary time for you. What feelings and thoughts were going through your mind as you're thinking, I could possibly lose my hearing?
Right. Well, at the time I wasn't aware that the hearing loss would be profound. It wasn't until I went to the doctor at university, and I actually, at that time, only had one ear that was aided, and it was an in-the-ear hearing aid, which is a very first step, baby step type of hearing aid. But he sent me down after evaluating me and said, "You will become deaf."
Wow. And
so I drove home from Baltimore, and I sat there and I thought about, well, I'm not going to be able to hear my children, potential grandchildren down the road. So I gave myself a 24-hour pity party and basically cried for 24 hours. And then the next day I just got up and went out.
Right.
You know.
But you're one of the most optimistic people I know. After your pity party, what did you tell yourself? What strategies did you employ to stay so positive as your hearing loss continued to progress?
Well, quite frankly, my philosophy of life has always been, I'm the captain of my ship. Nobody else is piloting my little boat down the river of life. So for me, it was research. The more I know about a subject, the more comfortable I become, and I feel like I can master it. The other strategies...
did that give you a sense of control?
Yeah, the sense of control. Yeah, right. Absolutely. Meniere's, unfortunately, there's no known cause. So, I mean, you can go on a low sodium diet, do strategies like that, but there's not a whole lot that you can do to cure the disease. Mm-hmm. So once I reached that conclusion, I knew I had to deal with the hearing loss eventually.
Mm-hmm. And how did it impact your personal and professional life? Because you were still working full-time and raising a family. And
yes. Well, I'll start with the personal aspects. When you have hearing aids, it's very difficult to hear on a phone. So what I found was that my 4 children started calling their dad for the important things in their lives, and I was left out. Mm-hmm. I was hearing these things secondhand. And, the other things, going out to dinner, as you know, Daddy, with a small group of people, and I couldn't participate in the conversation.
Right.
And professionally, as a pharmacist, it was important that I hear well. And so that became an issue, and I eventually retired at the age of 61.
Well, having a positive attitude helps with everything, but oftentimes what helps even more is acceptance of a given situation. Acceptance enables us to see our options, and knowing our options allows us to generate a plan to move forward. When we come back from the short commercial break, Mary Beth will share the rest of her story. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
"14 years ago, he diagnosed her with cystic fibrosis.
Our doctors read charts and test results.
Knowing my family history, she screened me early for colon cancer.
They read medical journals and digital images. But the most important thing they read
He put down the laptop, he looked me in the eye, and listened.
are their patients. Meritus Medical Group, home to your extraordinary doctor.
Before our break, our guest Mary Beth Ross was talking about her hearing loss and its impact on her life. Now she's going to tell us a little bit more about that story. So Mary Beth, as your hearing loss progressed, can you tell us some of the little things that you missed out? You mentioned that your kids didn't call you anymore. What else did you miss out on?
Well, it became small things like not being able to hear birds, which was huge, and not being able, well, we talked about the, in a social situation, whether you're going out to eat with another couple. One of the big issues I had, I started transporting my grandchildren in the back seat of my car, and I could tell that the two girls were kind of getting louder and getting angry at each other, but I did not understand what was going on.
Right.
So that became an issue, taking care of the grandkids. Yeah, so those are just a few of the things.
Right, right. When you first got your hearing aids, were they helpful, and did you progress to different, stronger hearing aids over time, or?
Yes, the hearing aids, basically they amplify the sound, and it was very helpful. I actually went through, in addition to the one in the ear hearing aid, I think I went through at least 4 pairs of hearing aids, each one progressively more advanced, because the technology does change through the years. And my hearing issue was getting worse, so I needed stronger hearing aids.
Yeah, I was just going to, you talked about social settings, and I was going to say that some people, and I guess I mean me in this situation, we make assumptions in certain situations, and I can remember the first time we were at a large social gathering, I thought that, I assumed that you weren't very friendly because I was trying to talk to you, and you didn't respond. And lo and behold, when we got to be friends, I realized what a disadvantage that was for you. And maybe it was a little bit of a sensitivity training for me to not make assumptions.
Right. Absolutely. And you weren't the first person to make that assumption.
Right.
The risk when a hearing impaired person goes out in a social situation is you have 2 strategies. You can be non-committal, which is what apparently I was doing that night with you, and just say things like, really, yes, or you can put yourself out and take the risk of saying something totally inappropriate.
Right.
So
thinking you know what you're saying. And
right.
Right.
So, and you can know immediately, like if you say, oh, no, I don't like that at all, and you were supposed to really be saying, yes, that's a great idea.
Right.
Then you could tell in the person's face that something is wrong.
Right, right.
So
Mary Beth, fast forward, you decided to get cochlear implants in 2018 and 2019. That's a big decision, and there are some risks. Tell us what considerations drove that decision.
Okay, yes. I was going to do a lot of research. If someone's going to put a hole in my head, I want to know about why and how they do it and the risks, like you say. But I had reached a point in my life where I was absolutely unable to go out. Even if I went to the grocery store, I'd keep my head down for fear of running into somebody I knew. My hearing loss was awful.
And your world gets smaller.
So, yeah, so I was limited. I just stayed at home. And this one particular month, in December, I had a really bad cold, which then congested my middle ear, made it even worse. And I just couldn't even hear my husband in the privacy of our own home. So I started getting really afraid of dementia, which is a huge issue with people who lose their hearing, because you're losing input from the external environment.
Plus, you're cutting yourself off from social interaction, which stimulates,
yes. Right? And so I started buckling down. I read 10 books that month in January, and then I did, loads of crossword puzzles, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not a life. I am like 64 years old. I can't live the rest of my life like this.
Right.
So I have a friend that actually lives here in Hagerstown. She was thinking about getting a cochlear implant, and so she recommended a audiologist that specializes in cochlear implants.
So what are the considerations that people consider? I know support, if you have support, is one of them. What are some of the other things they've asked you to consider when
Motivation.
Motivation. Did you have to learn how to hear
support,
again?
Right. Health. You
Overall
have to be,
health.
Certain health. Age. Although they have, my understanding is they've done cochlears on 90-year-olds. It just depends on how with it you are.
Right.
That sort of thing.
Okay. What is a cochlear implant? Can you briefly tell us the science behind it? You read all those books. I'm sure you read one on cochlear implants.
Okay, yes. Do we have a diagram of one?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can show that.
Okay, but I'll just go in and I'll say there are two parts to it. There's an external part, and I feel like I need to take my piece out. I'm going to take it out now. I am bilateral, so I can still hear. So this is the external part. This is the receiver, so it will receive the sounds from the external environment, and it will code it into electrical stimulation. This is actually a magnet, so it's sent down here to this magnet. I have the magnet that's now I'm back in hearing on both sides, that is underneath my skin and my scalp. From that part, the internal device has an electrode that gets threaded into my cochlear, which is a tiny pea-sized little part of your inner ear. And the cochlear then is stimulated, the little cells in there, and it sends the messages onto the auditory nerve and then to your brain.
Okay, we only have a little bit of time, but I just wanted to say, what kind of impact has this cochlear? How has it improved your life?
Oh, well, so it's like being in a dark room for the last 20 years and all of a sudden somebody turns on the light.
I remember one time when we were hiking, you said, "What's that noise?" And I went, "What?" And you go, "Oh, it's the stream." And it's funny, you were hearing it, and as a hearing person, I was taking it for granted and wasn't hearing it. So this has made a tremendous impact.
Yeah, it's been a whole assortment of like the wind in the trees, birds, and
your grandchildren.
My grandchildren, and I don't have to say, "What'd you say?" And then they scream it back at me. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful thing for me.
Well, Mary Beth, thank you for being on our show and sharing your story. Today on our show, as Mary Beth pointed out, there are consequences to untreated hearing loss. In fact, recent research indicates that untreated hearing loss is associated with a 24% decrease in social interaction and a 5 times greater risk of dementia. Since Prime Time for Women was founded on the health benefits of positive social interaction, I'd like to encourage everyone to get their hearing checked and follow up with an audiologist if there's any concern. As a tribute to Mary Beth, who loves the natural world, I'll close with a little saying about birds. Don't be an ostrich and put your head in the sand. Be an owl and wisely explore your options and discover your best solutions. Thanks for joining us today. Stay healthy and stay happy. See you next time on Prime Time for Women.